In 1872, Oklahoma Territory was a smoldering powder keg. For in it was a vast stretch of land owned by the Indians of the 5 civilized tribes. Here the Indian had to live side by side with the white man. Only a border separated them. A border that could not prevent war, if it was to come. It was a troubled time in a troubled country. A rough place for a man whose job was to deal in law, peace, and justice.
Temple.
Buffalo Horn.
I did not know you were back.
Just finished a case in Vernon. What is this?
I don't know. These men surprised us.
They don't know I'm here yet. You two keep them busy.
Hold it, all of you.
Stand still. Now put up your hands and start walking down that hill.
Whoever you are, you'll do a stretch in jail for this.
I'll have to prosecute myself. I'm the district attorney.
Temple, Houston?
That's right.
Okay, then maybe you better know you're interfering in a legal arrest. You're aiding a fugitive and firing on government officers.
What are you talking about?
Have a look. We were legally sworn in as deputies for this posse. That's an open warrant for the arrest of Chief Buffalo Horn on a charge of murder.
Murder?
This seems legal enough.
It's legal, all right.
And who does it say I have murdered?
The Indian Commissioner, Alan Barbie.
Mr. Barbie is dead?
Yeah. You fix that, Indian.
Do you believe this?
Doesn't make any difference what I believe. There's a charge against you, and it'll have to be settled in court.
I think he speaks with two tongues, Father, like all white men.
I speak as an officer of the court. It's my duty to uphold the law.
White man's law.
Every man's law, white or red. It's time you Indians know that that means justice.
Be silent, my son. Very well. I will go with you to face the white man's law and see if there is justice for an Indian. But can your justice bring back the life of Sparrowhawk?
He's getting away.
Wait a minute.
Oh, look,
Wait a minute. You only have a warrant from Chief Buffalo Horn, not his son. Any more shooting like that and you'll all go on trial, whether you're deputies or not. Now get going.
Look, Mr. Bigelow, I explained what happened. If Houston hadn't come along, Buffalo Horn would be dead the way you wanted it.
Now there'll be a trial. Does the marshal suspect anything?
No, when the posse split up, he went in the opposite direction. He didn't see us ambush the chief.
I don't like the idea of a trial. The Indian can always come out of it alive.
You, mind telling me something?
Perhaps.
Well, Buffalo Horn is only one Indian. Me killing him wouldn't have started your war.
What you forget, Mr. Larkin, is that you killed Barbie. The Indian didn't do it. If you had killed Buffalo Horn for a crime he didn't commit, it might very well have started the war. It just might have. So, it is only important, Mr. Larkin, that I win the last battle. The last is the only vital one.
Yeah?
We will try once again. A few well-directed words in the right places, and the town of Fort Smith shall do our work for us.
Later that day, Buffalo Horn's daughter Ruth and his son Running Cloud rode into Fort Smith with another brave. Since the Barbie murder, people of the town did little to hide the enmity they felt for the Indians. Come in. Oh, Ruth.
It's good to see you again, Temple.
I see your brother told you what happened.
Yes. Where is my father?
You know the charges. He's in jail.
I asked you to release him to his own people.
You know I can't do that, Ruth.
I told you it wouldn't do any good.
Temple, we've known each other for many years. You helped me get an education in the white man's schools. I wanted that education so I could become a proper wife to a man such as yourself. Buffalo Horn would have become your father, even as he is mine.
Ruth, this office has brought organized law to a country where there wasn't any law. I don't make those laws. I just abide by them. And regardless of what you and I mean to each other, I'm not breaking them for you or anybody else.
Stop it. You want the white man to believe this is the only way we can think?
Maybe it's the only language the white man understands.
Ruth, try to understand. If your father is innocent, he'll go free. If he's guilty, he'll pay for his crime. I promise you that your father will get justice.
In Fort Smith? I've seen the faces of people here. They hate us. They hate us because they want our land. Buffalo Horn will not get justice here.
Do you think I hate you too, Ruth?
My father did not kill Alan Barbie. That is all I know.
Well, you work in Barbie's office. Give me some facts that proves that your father is innocent.
My father gave his word. Are facts all that are important?
In court, yes. Facts prove whether a man is innocent or guilty.
I hope you're right, Temple. There are many men among the tribes who feel as Running Cloud does. Their tempers are short. It won't take much to make war.
Ruth, many men have died to bring law here. And maybe many more will die to keep it here. But no one's going to dictate to them, whether it be white man or Indian.
Is that your justice? A lynch mob for my father?
Get in my office, both of you. Stay off the street. Hurry up.
Out of our way, Houston. Nobody's stopping us from taking the Indian.
These are doing the stopping.
You crazy, Houston. Every man in this crowd's got that kind of argument.
Who's the first man to start arguing?
Everybody knows you're fast with a gun, Houston. But you're not fast enough for all of it.
Now, do we continue our argument about Buffalo Horn here or in court where it belongs?
Indians got no rights in our courts.
The law says they do. What do you want to think about it in jail? All right, Pete.
I want this street cleared in 2 minutes or we start shooting again. All right. I'm sure glad law books aren't the only things you practice with.
Get him a doctor, Pete. Satisfied now that your father will get a fair trial?
There was a lynch mob today. Tomorrow there could be another.
Mr. Houston's becoming more of a problem than I anticipated.
Okay, so the lynching didn't work. But we've still got enough evidence to make sure that Indian hangs. And that should get the war you want.
Never be too sure of yourself, Mr. Larkin. Mistakes are usually made by those who are. And we need Houston on our side. There can be no doubt as to the outcome of this trial. The Indian must be convicted.
Well, from what I've heard, nobody's been able to buy Houston yet.
Most men can be bought, Mr. Larkin, if the price is right. And Temple Houston is no exception. Here, send this wire off to George Blackwell in Wichita. Immediately.
You mean a man like Blackwell would come just because you say so?
He'll come, Mr. Larkin. He'll come.
There it is, Temple. Buffalo Horn's knife was found in Alan Barbie's back.
You admitted that this knife belongs to you.
I have nothing to hide. It is mine, but I did not use it. It was stolen from me.
You say you have an eyewitness that actually saw him commit the murder.
Yes, Tom Badger, the half-breed. He was doing some work for Barbie. Saw the whole thing.
He is lying. He could not have seen it.
Well, Tom Badger claims he wasn't any more than 30 feet away when he saw Buffalo Horn throw the knife.
Your knife and an eyewitness saw you commit the crime. What do you say to that?
I have told the marshal I could not have done the killing.
The chief claims he spent the night of the murder with a family of white settlers out near Bitter Sage Creek.
You check it?
Sent a deputy. There was a white family out there, all right. They never saw the chief. Never heard of him, for that matter.
Barbie's dead. There has to be a reason for the murder.
I had no reason.
Witnesses think otherwise. Tom Badger and a couple of others overheard the chief and Barbie in a pretty hot argument on Tuesday night.
That the truth?
It is the truth.
Let me warn you, Buffalo Horn, anything you say will be held against you.
I have told you I have nothing to hide.
Why did you and Barbie argue?
The tribes own the land on which they live. Mr. Barbie wanted to change that, to give each individual Indian his own land.
Individual white men own their own land. What's wrong with it?
It would not be safe for the Indian. White men would come into the territory and buy the land for a few dollars and a bottle of whiskey, and the Indian would lose everything. That is why we argued.
Seems to me you had a pretty good reason for wanting Barbie dead.
No. Mr. Barbie only discussed this with me. He had done nothing for which I would kill him.
I'm going over to Barbie's office.
I'll get you the key.
Buffalo Horn's statement isn't the kind of evidence I can present to a jury. Maybe something important will turn up.
Temple.
Oh, hi, Ward. I was wondering when I'd see you.
I heard about the lynch mob.
Is there anything you care to say about it for the dispatch?
Yeah, look, Ward, I know you have to print the facts, but I wish you'd play this one down. I want Buffalo Horn to be tried by the jury, not by your newspaper.
Well, I don't want any more lynch mobs.
Then we understand each other.
Well, not quite. You know, this case is going to make news, big news. We've never had to try an Indian chief in a white man's court before.
You mean a particular kind of news?
A very particular kind. I'm talking about the possibility of the Braves going on the warpath.
Well, I don't want war either, Ward. There isn't anything I wouldn't do to stop it. That is anything but stop this trial. That answer your question?
Uh-huh. You know, I knew you wouldn't back down. Towns can't grow up unless they have some backbone, and officials with some guts. I'm with you all the way, son.
Thank you, Ward. Once I passed that stone marker, I'd be in Indian territory. Barbie's place was about halfway between Fort Smith and the Cherokee town of Cherokee. I knew that Cherokee scouts patrol these borders to keep out white homesteaders. But today I saw no one. It was quiet. And the quiet seemed wrong. I couldn't help wondering where the Cherokee Braves were. I was anxious now to get to Barbie's house and back. Barbie had written it all down. And Buffalo Horn had told the truth about Barbie's idea of dividing up the Indian lands. But there was something else. Something Buffalo Horn hadn't told me.
Ruth.
I followed you here. I thought you'd find Mr. Barbie's journal.
Why? Because you knew that this journal would hang Buffalo Horn?
I knew only that you wouldn't understand.
Every entry in this journal was signed by you.
Yes, it was part of my work to make the entries.
Then you knew that Barbie was taking his plan to Washington to force the division of tribal lands. You told your father about it, and that's why he killed Barbie.
No.
Ruth, listen to me.
You listen to me. My father knew nothing about Al and Barbie going to Washington. That entry was made the same day he was killed. But I knew nothing about it. I didn't have time to tell my father.
Do you expect me to believe that you didn't know anything about this until that day? Do you expect the jury to believe it? Ruth, you said I wouldn't understand. Why don't you try to understand?
My father's innocent. Temple, all you can see are your facts. Oh, Temple, you're no longer a man because you've forgotten how to think with your heart.
This journal will convict your father. I'm sorry, Ruth. I'm going to Cherokee. You riding with me?
Cherokee have only hate for you. They will kill you. Why are you going?
To see Running Cloud.
You won't change my brother's mind. He's sworn to make war if my father hangs.
And I'll try to talk to your people. Maybe they have more common sense than your brother. You riding with me?
You ride alone.
Now I know why there had been no patrols on the border. The Braves were here in Chiroka for a funeral.
You come here at such a time?
I come in peace. Who'd you bury?
A brave warrior you knew well, Sparrowhawk. Do you remember, white man? You were there when he was killed by your men of the law.
He was a good man, I'm sorry.
What is it you want here?
I wanted to talk to you before it was too late. I am told that if the court finds your father guilty, the Cherokee will start a war.
I have sworn it. Hundreds of white men will die.
You can't win a war, Running Cloud. You know that.
We have many guns. We will see.
I swear that Buffalo Horn will get justice.
White man's justice? The same justice you gave to Sparrowhawk? No! No! We do not need his life. It is better that he be a warning to the rest of the white men. Let him tell them. If my father dies, they all will die. Put him on his horse.
Running Cloud was going to make sure his warning wasn't missed. He dumped me directly in front of the marshal's office.
Temple, we can't let it slide. If the Indians want trouble, we can give them all they want. I say order the troops from Leavenworth now and move into Indian territory.
So far, the Cherokees hadn't hurt anybody but me. Running Cloud's the one that's stirring up the trouble, nobody else. Buffalo Horn has kept the peace, but his son's too young to have that kind of common sense.
Temple. Thank you for not sending for the soldiers.
Maybe you can talk some sense into your son.
How? By telling him you wish to hang an innocent man? Or that you are very sorry for Sparrowhawk? Now, Temple, I have no words to do what you want.
You heard the evidence I found in Barbie's office, and you still say you're innocent? Buffalo Horn, we've known each other for a long time. I never expected lies from you.
Yes, Temple, we have known each other a very long time. That is why you should believe me.
Bobby's journal cinches it. Buffalo Horn will hang. Pete, wire Leavenworth to have the troops ready to move in an hour's notice if we need them.
Right.
It was only the preliminary to the trial, the grand jury proceedings. But even so, you could feel the anger, the growing tension in the town. Everyone, it seemed, wanted to be present at the hearings. Even George Blackwell, one of the biggest political powers in the territory.
The whole country's talking about this trial. The newspapers are steaming it up.
You may be right.
Now, if Houston convicts the Indian, we can make a national hero out of him. And you will have a ready-made governor for the territory.
You'd go to any length, wouldn't you, to get what you want in Indian territory? Even to getting a man appointed governor.
Well, that's what I'm getting paid for. And I'm getting paid a lot. Besides, I don't think that George Blackwell would object to having the next governor in his pocket.
No, I wouldn't object. In politics, it's most convenient to have the right kind of pocket. When do we meet, Houston?
Tonight at my place. Meantime, let's go over to the courthouse. This should prove interesting.
All right.
The dinner at Bigelow's home had been polite and vague. I was beginning to wonder why Bigelow had deliberately brought me together with George Blackwell. That was just the grand jury. The trial is another matter.
I've seen enough. You know what you want and you get it. That's a good trait for a politician.
Politician? I've never gone in very much for politics.
You're young. I like a man who's young enough to grow with the country.
Thanks, but I don't see what...
The success of a political career greatly depends upon the choosing of the right moment.
I'm sure Mr. Houston has a lot of preliminary work to do before the trial, George. Why don't we get to the point?
Good idea. Mr. Houston, how would you feel about being the next governor of this territory?
Oh, I'm flattered, gentlemen. But why me?
It's very simple, Mr. Houston. This case can make you a big man.
Is it the case, gentlemen, or the fact that I'm Sam Houston's son?
A famous name never hurts. But we're not trading on your father's reputation. If that was what we wanted, we'd have come to you before this.
You seem sure I'll get a conviction in the case.
You can't lose.
And if you want to be governor, you won't lose.
This is a big step for me, gentlemen. I'd like a little bit more time to think about it.
You'd like to be governor, wouldn't you?
Oh, of course. But the answer has to come from the jury at the trial. If I win the case, we'll discuss it further.
Fair enough.
If you'll excuse me, gentlemen, I have a lot of work to do. Thank you for your hospitality.
Good night, Mr. Houston.
And it was my pleasure meeting you, sir.
And mine, Mr. Houston.
Right in your pocket, George. All you have to have is the right kind of bait. And the fish bites.
I didn't expect the Cherokees to pull a fool stunt like breaking Buffalo Horn out of jail. But that's what was happening when I got back to town from Bigelow's place.
Yeah, that's what's there. Yapo, Yapo.
You all right, Pete?
Yeah, I guess I'll live. Now, you're not the only one that's been hurt by the Cherokee.
How'd they get in here?
Well, they waited till I relieved my deputy for dinner. Thought I heard this door open. Just as I turned around to see who it was, somebody slugged me. Hey, he's still here. You stop him?
No, it was his own idea. It's swelling up, Pete. You better go over and have Doc take a look at it.
All right.
Can you make it?
Yeah, I can make it all right. But you still haven't told me about him.
Later, Pete. Your braves could have broken you out of here, Buffalo Horn. Why didn't you go out?
If I had gone, the white men would have come after me to bring me back. My people would have had to fight them. Many would have died. I did not want that.
This time, it's my chance to thank you.
Temple, if there is a war after the trial, it will be because of the white man, not Buffalo Horn.
Everybody rise. United States Federal District Court is now in session. Judge Isaac Parker presiding. Sit down.
Gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution will demonstrate during the course of this trial how the defendant, Chief Buffalo Horn, had the strongest of motives for this crime: to prevent the distribution of Cherokee tribal lands to individuals. He also had the opportunity. We have positively identified the murder weapon as belonging to the defendant, and we have a witness who actually saw him commit the crime. When we have proved our case beyond a reasonable doubt, and you have found the defendant guilty, we will ask the court for the maximum penalty permitted under the law, which, as you are aware, is is death by hanging.
Gentlemen of the jury, as you know, we're in Indian territory.
The defense didn't have much to go on. It became more and more apparent as the trial progressed. It seemed now that Buffalo Horn's attorney was just going through the motions. Not a single point arose that could indicate the chief's innocence. Have you ever seen this knife before?
Yes.
Do you know to whom it belongs?
It's my father's.
And when you, a legal deputy, came upon the defendant and attempted to serve him with a warrant, what did he do?
He took a shot at me.
Tom Badger, you say you saw Alan Barbie come out of the house. A man appeared in the bushes, threw a knife, and killed him.
That's right.
Then what happened?
He rode away in a hurry.
Now, Tom, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Would you recognize this man if you saw him again?
Yes, sir.
Is he sitting in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
Would you point him out, please?
That man, right there.
Thank you, Tom.
Satisfied?
He'll do. He knows nothing about politics, but he'll learn.
Governor Houston, son of Sam Houston. Sounds most impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Foreman will hand the verdict to the bailiff. Will the defendant please rise? Will you read the verdict, please?
We, the members of the jury, find the defendant, Buffalo Horn, guilty of murder as charged.
The court will pronounce sentence. Buffalo Horn, you have been found guilty of the foulest crime man is capable of under the law. Before his God, the wanton taking of a life. For this, 1 week from today, I sentence you to be hanged by the neck until you are dead.
Drop it! Come on.
Well, that was very well done. I want to congratulate you on this.
Me too.
Ruth,
Yes, Mr. Harlan.
you've been very close to Temple Houston all your life, haven't you? Ever since you were born.
What is it you want to know?
Well, there was talk that you two were to be married.
It was talk. That's all.
Still, I think you know him better than anyone else alive. Much better than any of his friends know him.
I'm in a hurry now.
Ruth, has he ever indicated to you any political ambitions?
There it is, Temple. I want you to tell me now. Is it true?
I talked to Blackwell, yes, but I didn't give him a decision.
I always knew you were ambitious, Temple, but I never thought you'd climb to the governor's chair over the dead body of my father.
Ruth, do you really believe I convicted your father so I could be made governor?
What do you believe?
Your father had a fair trial. The jury found him guilty. He is guilty.
I hope you are made governor, Temple. Because if you are, you will always see my father's face. He will only have died once. But you, Temple, will die many, many times.
You're wrong, Ruth. Wrong.
It's only 7 days until my father hangs. But 7 days can be a long, long time. And much can happen.
Ruth said she still had 7 days to do something about her father. And the way she rode out of town, she wasn't going to waste a minute of it. Back inside Indian Territory, Ruth had a rendezvous with 3 Cherokee braves. Each one of them had just one idea in mind. Make sure Buffalo Horn doesn't hang. I checked at your office. They told me I'd find you here.
Just going over a few facts and figures.
What about this?
Shouldn't I be asking you?
You feel the same way as Ruth does, that I convicted her father for the governor's job.
You know, lawyers aren't the only ones who look at facts. Newspaper men use them, too.
For instance?
Well, I found out you were at Bigelow's house. Talked over the governor's matter with Blackwell. Before the trial.
Did they tell you I didn't give them an answer?
Well, they were pretty sure what that answer was going to be if the trial went right. And it did. Why, you don't think they were going to hand you that governor's job just because they're public-spirited citizens, do you? Why, everybody knows the Cherokee and Southern Railroad would love a land grant over Indian Territory.
So?
Bigelow is on the payroll of the railroad. They make you governor, and you'll owe them that land grant.
I wasn't bought, Ward. I don't owe anybody anything.
Can you believe that? Honestly? You know, in our system of law, a man is presumed innocent till proved guilty. Now, with you wanting to be governor, maybe, just maybe, you were thinking a man is guilty until proved innocent. Think it over, son. It's worth thinking about.
Sometimes it's easier for a man to know other people than it is to know himself. Maybe Ward Harlan was right. Maybe being governor meant more to me than I realized. Oh, hi, Pete.
Temple, saw a light in your window. You know, it's almost midnight. I didn't figure you'd be working this late now the trial's over.
I'm not too convinced it is, Pete.
Well, now, just what's that mean?
Ever since I talked to Harlan, I've been sitting here going back over the whole case, wondering if Buffalo Horn did get an honest trial or whether I personally put a noose around his neck.
Drive yourself crazy thinking that way. There's no reason for it.
It's too perfect, Pete. The knife, the witness, the timing, the motive. It was too perfect.
Is that bad?
It's almost as if somebody put it all together for us, piece by piece. Barbie was killed out in the open in front of an eyewitness. Chief Buffalo Horn left his own knife behind so that we could convict him.
You changed your mind then. You don't think he was guilty?
There's some doubt now, Pete, and I don't like it. Chief Buffalo Horn couldn't have done a better job of convicting himself than if he wanted to hang.
Somebody's sure in a hurry.
It's Ruth.
Oh, I have to see you. I'm glad you're here, Marshal.
You look like you've been doing a lot of hard riding.
Yes. And 3 Cherokee braves have been riding hard, too. We've been searching the Bitter Sage Valley. And we found the Lindstrom family.
Why, Ruth?
Well, my father said he spent the night with the Lindstroms, the night Mr. Barbie was killed.
But my deputy checked that family. They'd never even seen or heard of the chief.
Oh, they may have spoken to someone, but not to the Lindstroms.
You sure, Ruth?
Yes.
Then what did the Lindstroms tell you?
Well, they came west to settle in Cherokee territory.
That's forbidden to the white man.
I know Buffalo Horn explained that to them, and then he said they could homestead over the border. And then he and Sparrowhawk helped fix the axle on their wagon. And then stayed until morning.
If that's true, Pete.
Oh, but the Lindstroms would have come forward before now, before they'd let a man hang.
Oh, but they've been camping out on the prairie. They knew nothing of the murder or the trial until I told them.
Oh. What about the chief's reason for wanting Barbie out of the way?
Maybe somebody else had a reason. You said that your deputy talked to somebody at Bitter Sage Creek.
Yeah.
Whoever he was, if he lied, he might have been bought off.
All right. How about Tom Badger, our eyewitness?
Tom Badger, your eyewitness? Well, he's drunk so much poison liquor, he has the eyesight of a bat in bright daylight.
I remember something that happened in court. Tom Badger seemed to be having trouble with his eyesight.
Temple, you're looking for things that aren't there.
Somebody's gonna hang Pete, and we don't want to make a mistake. Now, let's start checking. Let's check everything right from the beginning like the trial had never happened. And that's an order.
All right, what first?
Tom Badger first. Let's break down his story, and then let's find somebody who bought off that man at Bitter Sage Creek. I'll ride out and find the Lindstroms, get a new deposition, or bring him back here with me. Come in here, Ruthie. Here's what we're gonna do.
Tom Badger?
Yes, Miss Red Hawk.
We were supposed to meet Mr. Houston here. Have you seen him?
Is that him coming now?
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure. Anybody can see that.
Anybody can see what, Tom? That a man who can't identify the two of us in bright daylight at 10 feet, how he could possibly identify somebody in the dark at 30 feet?
Yet you swore you saw Buffalo Horn.
Now, don't try to stop me here.
He's dead.
Why'd you shoot him, Larkin?
Why the? When the man Drew and the marshal and the district attorney? Go get the coroner.
Tom Badger can't change his testimony now.
And somebody was afraid he might.
Larkin?
Larkin's a gun hand. He shoots with money. Somebody bought him off. I'm going to Bitter Sage. Badger's false testimony was the first tangible proof that Buffalo Horn might be innocent. But if he were, then who had killed Barbie and why? Why had they gone to so much trouble to pin it on the Indian chief? Mr. Bailey?
Yeah.
I'm Temple Houston, the district attorney. I'm here checking the evidence in the Barbie murder, and
You could have saved yourself a ride. Everything I had to say, I said to the deputy.
I know. I read your deposition. And you were lying, Mr. Bailey. You weren't even near this house the night of the murder. Buffalo Horn's niece found the people who were here. And now, Mr. Bailey, we'll take a new deposition.
They're coming. Houston and Bailey. Houston must have busted Bailey's story, or otherwise he wouldn't be bringing him in. Bigelow doesn't want Bailey to reach town alive. Let's go.
Don't make a break for it, Bailey. They'll kill you to shut your mouth.
Now the pieces were fitting back together again, but in a different pattern. I recognized the dead bushwhacker. He had been in the posse that ambushed Buffalo Horn. Pete, this is Bailey. His statement to your deputy was a lie. Right, Bailey?
Yeah, that's right.
Now tell him who paid you to lie.
Tom Badger.
You heard him, Pete. I'm riding out to find the Lindstroms. Hold on to him till we need him.
All right, come on.
Look, what are you so worried about? Tom Badger's dead. All Bailey knows is what Badger told him. He doesn't know anything about us.
I spoke to Pete Rosslyn. They've located the Lindstrom family.
Are you sure?
If Houston brings Lindstrom back here to testify, this will blow the whole case wide open.
So I'm clearing out of here right now.
Do nothing of the sort. You're staying here. Nobody's running.
Look, I killed Barbie, and I'm not gonna hang for it.
You're right, Mr. Larkin. You're not. It'll still be Buffalo Horn who'll hang.
Well, you're not making much sense.
That Judge Parker who presided at the trial. He lives near Fayetteville. That's not too far from here. I can get to him. It'll be days before Houston can bring Lindstrom back here to testify. By the time they get here, it'll be too late. Buffalo Horn will be dead. The uprising is set for Wednesday morning, Judge. The Cherokees plan to invade Fort Smith in full force. Free Buffalo Horn and kill everyone who gets in their way.
Well, I've heard rumors there might be trouble if we convicted the chief. Unfortunately, there's no way I can prevent it. I could never yield to such pressure and stop the hanging.
There is one way you can stop the trouble, Judge.
How?
The uprising is set for Wednesday. Hang Buffalo Horn on Monday instead, 2 days earlier. Keep it a secret from the Indians. By Wednesday, you can have enough troops in Fort Smith to handle anything that happens.
I don't know, Mr. Bigelow.
Would you want an Indian massacre in Fort Smith, Judge? When it can be prevented?
All right, sir. I'll telegraph the marshal in the morning.
Thank you, Judge.
If I ever wanted to live with my conscience again, I had to get the Lindstroms back to Fort Smith and clear Buffalo Horn. The more I rode, the farther it took me from the governor's chair. But from here on in, I'd always be under white suspicion, wearing the same label as my father, Indian lover. In the meantime, Pete Rosslyn had received the telegram from Judge Parker. Buffalo Horn would be hanged before I could get back.
You'll be in charge for a while. Be right back.
Marshal sent me. They're hanging Buffalo Horn tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yes.
They can't do that.
The judge sent orders from Fayetteville, changing the date.
There's still one chance. You take the Lindstroms to Fort Smith. I'll go on ahead. There was only one way I could possibly stop the hanging of Buffalo Horn. And the only man I could trust to help me do it was Ward Harlan.
The boy said you want to see me in a hurry.
That's right, Ward. You said some things about me, things I didn't like.
Well, what's the point, Temple?
Buffalo Horn is innocent, and I'll never get a chance to prove it unless you help me.
Oh, well, you count me in, son.
You've never given anybody this kind of help before, Ward.
Well, there always has to be a first time. Who do I have to kill?
Nobody yet. We still have 15 minutes. I'll explain it to you on the way over.
Hello, Ward. What brings you out this time of the night?
The hanging. I thought I'd like to hear what you might have to say about it for the paper tomorrow.
You know as much about it as anybody.
Yeah? Where's Temple Houston?
Well, he's... You ask him when you see him.
All right. I'll wait.
Well, now, what makes you think he's coming here?
Nothing. Only thing I know is he sure ain't coming to my house.
Well, Ward, this is a jail, not a...
Now, why don't we talk about the hanging while I'm waiting? Newspapers have got to get all the news, Pete, or they're falling down on the job. They're not serving the people.
I've heard you miss before. What the devil?
Don't move, Pete. I mean business.
Are you crazy?
Ward, get the key and open the cell.
You're making a big mistake.
Not this time. Get the key.
No! Do you want to get us all killed? He means business. You heard what he said.
Do you know what you're doing?
No one will get the blame for this but me, and that's the way I want it. Let's have it, Pete. Lock the back door, Ward. Chief?
Temple, this will ruin you.
The horses are out front. Give me the keys, Ward. Let's go, Chief. Be out, Pete.
You know, something told me if I stayed around tonight, I'd get a story.
All I could do for the moment was to make sure Buffalo Horn and I put as much distance as possible between us and Fort Smith. And in the dark, we knew Pete Rosslin and his posse couldn't possibly follow our trail.
The ways of the white men are strange. I tried to understand them, but you saved me from the posse, then you put me in jail. You stopped the men from hanging me, then you have me brought to trial and sentenced to hang. But before the sentence can be carried out, you free me from the jail. Very strange, the ways of the white man.
That's right.
Now, because of me, you are yourself a fugitive from your white man's law.
Because that same law says that an innocent man shouldn't hang. I know now you didn't kill Barbie.
I've been thinking how different all would have been had you been your father.
Why?
Sam Houston knew well the Cherokee chief does not lie.
You taught me a lesson, Chief. That there is a place in our law for a man's word. If I'd have realized this and listened to you, none of this would have happened.
What do we do now?
Wait for the proper time. Then? Well, it won't be the first time one of these has been the law around here.
This court will be in order? The marshal isn't back yet?
No, Your Honor, he's still out with the posse.
We will defer the regular calendar for an extraordinary hearing on the disgraceful occurrences early this week. We shall determine where the guilt lies, and I promise you the guilty will be punished to the limit of the law.
If Your Honor, please.
Mr. Harlan?
I claim the right to be heard in this case.
By what authority?
As a friend of the court, with important information which may aid the court in seeing justice is done.
Very well, we'll hear you briefly as a friend of the court.
I'll not take up Your Honor's valuable time. I merely wish to make a brief announcement. Attorney Temple Houston will be here at any moment with important new evidence for Your Honor's consideration. He will also produce his client, Chief Buffalo Horn.
His client. Mr. Houston is the prosecutor.
Was the prosecutor, Your Honor. He is now counsel for the defense.
This court will be in order. Any further disturbance and I shall...
We are ready, Your Honor.
You helped a prisoner to escape. By what authority do you want...
By this authority. Court have any arguments? Call Chief Buffalo Horn.
If Chief Buffalo Horn is present, will he take the stand?
Your Honor, we're about to reopen the case of the charge of murder against Chief Buffalo Horn. You might call it a new trial, without motion for same.
Now, listen to me.
Buffalo Horn, the night you are alleged to have murdered Indian Commissioner Alan Barbie, where were you?
At a settler's camp near Bitter Sage Creek with a family named Lindstrom.
If they were in this courtroom, would they verify this?
I believe they would.
Do you see him in this courtroom?
Yes?
Would you point him out, please?
There, in the front row.
Would Mr. and Mrs. Lindstrom please stand up? When I heard about the Lindstroms, I rode out to find them. When they had heard what had happened and Chief Buffalo Horn was ready to hang, they were anxious to come back here and verify his story.
Will the defense counsel please approach the bench? Obviously, if this is true, Temple, your client is innocent. But what about the other evidence? The knife?
Stolen and planted to make it appear that Chief Buffalo Horn was the murderer. It was all framed, Your Honor.
But the eyewitness?
Pete Rosslin and I will testify that Tom Badger couldn't tell us apart in broad daylight at 10 feet. When they found out that Pete and I had found that out, they killed him to keep him quiet.
Do you know who's responsible for this?
I'm fairly certain, sir. And with the court's kind indulgence, I'll try to prove it here and now.
Go ahead, but put those things away.
Everybody knows that the most important thing in a murder is the motive. And Chief Buffalo Horn's motive was the most obvious. To keep the Cherokee lands intact. To be owned by the tribes and not by individuals as Commissioner Barbie proposed. He was afraid that Alan Barbie's proposal would destroy the Cherokee tribal government. But there was a man who had even a greater motive. What, please? I've been studying the Indian Treaty of 1867, and it states, the Cherokees would only hold their lands while they remain at peace. But if they ever went to war, the treaty would be abrogated, and the Cherokee and Southern Railroad would receive a free grant of land for a right-of-way across Indian territory. The man hired by the CNS to start that war and to make it appear that Chief Buffalo Horn was the murderer was...
Temple!
You in a hurry, Mr. Bigelow?
It was all over now. Justice had taken a long road and a long time to get to Fort Smith. But now that it was here, I could face my friends again. And maybe what was more important, I could face myself.